Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 22, whatever you want to call it, is pretty darn fun. I have been enjoying the beta despite its flaws, but I do want to talk about some of its flaws because, by God, if they fix one, two, yeah, honestly, even if they just fix one of these things, I think it would improve the gameplay quite a bit. So we're going to talk about that today. Now, without further ado, remember, if you do enjoy today's video, don't forget to leave it a nice, thick, and juicy like as always. Of course, if you enjoy this kind of content and you want more like it, be sure to hit that big red sexy subscribe button right underneath the video. Also, going to thank my channel members. You guys help make these videos possible. If you don't join, get access to the exclusive perks that they get. Be sure to check out that blue join button. Anyway, let's begin. Now, for some reason, Infinity Ward, despite acknowledging at the COD Next event with their game testing that most of the player base do like to rush around, have decided to make yet another game that is pretty camper friendly. It is quite a baffling decision, I know. I don't know if they just think that offering a different kind of experience helps shake things up for the player base, whereas you get like a Black Ops Cold War or just whatever Treyarch game comes out is going to be for rushers, and then whatever Sledgehammer game comes out, everyone ignores. They just kind of offer something completely different, and maybe that's something interesting, maybe that ends up being a good thing in the long run, I don't know. But as far as what I care about, that's having fun. I like to have fun. And when I jump into my Call of Duty game and people aren't showing up on the minimap when they fire an unsuppressed weapon and footsteps sound like wearing concrete blocks on your feet, okay, it's not that bad. But the new 3D audio engine makes footsteps very, very clear. I do think that you are presented with some similar issues to what we had with Modern Warfare 2019. Now, we're going to go over some of these and more, as well as what they can do to fix these issues. Now, first up is, of course, the minimap. Apparently, the minimap was working fine in alpha testing, and when the content creators went to COD Next and whatnot, were testing gameplay, that was a bug. A functioning minimap was a bug. Apparently, it is not supposed to function where if you fire an unsuppressed weapon, people show up on the minimap. That would just be a crime, wouldn't it? Now, there is an issue with this, and that, of course, like with Modern Warfare 2019, when they started getting weird with the minimap, is it can be quite punishing to players who like to think about things. Now, I know they're going for more tactical experience, so they want to make it a little bit harder to detect where players are. The problem with that is the game leans a little too far into being camper friendly. There's a fine line between tactical, kind of encouraging slowing down the gameplay, and guess what? Half the lobbies you're going to come across are going to be filled with guys sitting in corners with a shotgun. There's quite a fine line there. And again, that's why I say if you change one or two of these things, you could have a pretty darn fun 6v6 multiplayer experience on your hands. And I'm going to get more into that at the end of the video. But first things first, fix the minimap. Because you're punishing people who would typically look at the minimap. Say there is someone camping in a corner somewhere. That person fires a shotgun into your teammate's back as they run by, and typically you'd be able to see that red dot on the minimap. Maybe you'd be able to jump around the corner and gun them down that way. Maybe you slide around while pre-firing and be able to take them out that way, and they're not really expecting you. But since you made the play by thinking for a second, checking your minimap, seeing where they are, and making a play based off of that information, something I would consider to be a tactical move, you were rewarded with a good play. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen with the way the minimap works, and it not only punishes players for playing intelligently, but it also encourages slower gameplay. Now, something that leans into this and compounds this problem is the new 3D audio engine. Now, it's not the entire 3D audio engine. The sounds in this game do sound amazing. You can definitely hear the upgrades from what Modern Warfare 2019 sounded like, which that game sounded amazing. It set a new bar for FPS games. This one sounds just as good. I'm in love with the sounds and the animations. Infinity Ward just absolutely nails that aspect of these games. The problem is the footsteps. Now, the footsteps aren't quite as cinder block boots that we had in Modern Warfare 2019. They're a little bit better than that, but they're still quite loud. Loud enough that it's very common that a majority of the kills you're going to get, maybe not a majority, but probably 30 to 40% of the kills you're going to get in a match are going to be due to you hear someone running, whether it's down a hallway, whether it's above you, something like that. You're going to hear people running and you're going to go out of your way to just make a play based solely on footsteps. You're punished for moving faster than a walk. Now again, that wouldn't be as much of an issue if something like Dead Silence was a perk and not a field upgrade, but because that's put into field upgrades, you can't run with that all the time. Now again, Dead Silence isn't something that, if it was a perk, should make you completely silent. Will it reduce the sound of your footstep audio by up to 75%? Yes, I think that's a good balance. You're not totally silent, and people can still, if they have a good ear, if they have their sweaty headphones on, they still will be able to hear you and make plays based on that. But you do have an advantage, and you're giving up another perk to be able to equip that. I think that could be something that would be very useful to have in a game like this, especially on some of your bigger maps. I think it would be very useful to run loadouts with Dead Silence. You basically have to have it as your field upgrade on those kinds of maps, whereas on smaller maps you don't necessarily have to run that because the action is going so fast that you don't really have to worry about it as much. Like that marketplace map, I can't remember the name of it. That map is super fun. It's tight, it's close quarters, it's action packed. You don't really need Dead Silence just because it is so fast paced. You're constantly hearing gunshots more than you're hearing footsteps, and I think that is a good thing on those maps. But when you go to the bigger maps like Museum, which thank God they took that out of the rotation for the beta, but even the hotel map, just kind of sitting and listening for footsteps is a very common thing you're going to see on kill cams. You're also going to have to do it yourself quite a bit just to be able to deal with people that are doing the same thing and people that are running around, and it just becomes such a viable strategy that everyone is going to end up doing it unless they're this cracked out G Fuel maniac who's going around and it just doesn't even matter because they have their VPN on and all that kind of thing. You know how it goes in Call of Duty games. At the end of the day, I think it's just tilted so heavily in favor of people who are going to play much slower. Again, I don't think every slow player is the person sitting in a corner with a shotgun, but it would be a lie to say that that's not a good chunk of those kinds of players. Most of this player base is going to be running and gunning. That's just the way these games are built. And I understand Infinity Ward trying to offer gameplay in ways that is going to kind of change that up and give you a little bit more to think about while playing, but I think some of these decisions just are not, they're not overall better for gameplay. This game could play much better and offer a more balanced experience for players who are going to play a little slower and players who are going to run around a little bit more if you change one or two of the things that I've mentioned before. Again, if you just make Dead Silence a perk, you don't really need to change the way the footsteps sound, I don't think, because people can run that Dead Silence and then it's okay. So people who are just going to sit around and sound horror for footsteps, well, guess what? There's somebody with Dead Silence who's going to come around and catch you. You're not going to be able to get away with that all the time. The mini-map thing, I do think that's something they should change regardless. That's just such a basic FPS mechanic. But again, if you just change the mini-map and you don't change the footsteps or where Dead Silence is, I think that can help greatly as well. Modern Warfare 19, at this point in its life cycle, after they ended service and everything, I think its multiplayer was in a pretty decent spot, having gone back and played it a good bit. It is pretty fun to jump into that. Yes, you're not going to encounter quite as many sweats as you did in its heyday. Most of them are, of course, going to come with the new game, though. But the gameplay itself was pretty fun by the end of its life cycle. But I think this game is suffering from a lot of the issues that Modern Warfare 19 had at the beginning of its life cycle. And just fixing, of course, all three would be great, but I don't think they're going to do that. Fixing one or two of these things will greatly improve the overall experience for most players. So hopefully going forward, they will take some of this feedback. I doubt they will, but let me know down below what you think they should do. Should they do all three of these things? Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy the game. Or do you think, kind of like I do, where if you change one or two, I think that'll improve it enough to where most people are going to be having more fun with the game. Let me know down below. Let's have a conversation, and I will see you guys in the next video.